Hello, and welcome to the Anime Explorations podcast. My name is Alex.
I'm Tora.
And I'm David.
And this is a monthly anime book club style podcast where we watch some anime and talk about it. But before we start off with the show in question, we catch up on what we're currently watching and talk about stuff that's happened in recent anime news. So, winter season is about, fall season is about at the halfway point. What are you still watching?
Really enjoying Shangri-La Frontier.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Daima is just real cute. Like, it's very much more a successor to Dragon Ball, the original, than it is to Z. So, just enjoying that. It's very old school. Honestly, it feels like it's almost too Toriyama. Because, like, so many of the staples that he is known for are just there.
No editing this time.
I can see that.
Yeah, like, I don't dislike it, but, you know, it is so his style, yeah. As Tora said, like, seems like the studio didn't say no to him before he died.
It's great. It's just all of these strange little guys hanging out.
Yeah, really enjoying that. I am still watching Do-Over Damsel Conquers the Dragon Emperor, and there is a lot more politics that's gone into it since last month. And it's like, oh, this is very different than what I was...
This is how they get you. They're like, this is going to be light and fluffy and fun. And then it's like, no! Drama!
Yeah.
So I am still watching 2.5D Seduction, which has continued to get very good.
Nice.
Like, in ways that I wish My Dress Up Darling had gone. Like, so for example, like one of the big things here is like, so as we talked about in our My Dress Up Darling episode, our male lead there is the person who does all the costume design and costume creation, and he's generally depicted as like his special gifted skill is sewing things. And here it's our female cast, the women who are designing their own costumes. And it's getting into stuff that, in terms of like materials and that sort of thing, that the main show didn't get in, that My Dress Up Darling didn't get into. Like, there's a bit where the arc, where we're at now is an arc leading up to them doing group cosplay at Comic-Con, at Summer Comic-Con specifically. And they get into stuff like, oh, we're doing a costume which has a skirt made out of PVC fabric. And getting into that PVC fabric is very difficult to work with. And you can't undo stitch and do over stuff and that sort of thing.
I'm just nodding over here. Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, PVC fabric is like, you need to get it right the first time.
Yeah. We have a bit where, for example, we have male cosplayers. We have male cross players, and it's not played for comedy.
Nice.
Like, we have a group of characters who are fraternal twins who do a group cosplay together. And our male lead is asked, "Can you? My brother needs this thing that I accidentally stuck in my bag. Can you run in and give it to him?" And the way it's played is just, he goes in and the brother's like, "Hey, you don't have a problem with guys doing crossplay, do you?" And our main character's like, "Nah, I'm cool."
There you go.
Yeah, like
everyone should just be chill like that.
Yeah, like this is great. It's honestly, it's a really good companion piece to My Dress Up Darling in a lot of respects. Otherwise, there's been a bit more discourse in this slightly more mainstream circles. There's an article on a Hey Answer Man column on ANN about the nudity removal in Ranma and a Half, and it's actually finally, like, reading this got to the point where I realized what exactly is bugging me about all of it. I don't mind removing nipples and having like Barbie doll breasts or that sort of thing. I grew up watching the Tenchi Muyo OVAs back in the 90s, and that's how they handled it there. It's removing the butts because it draws attention to itself because it is literally bad anatomy in terms of that's not how musculature works on people, and particularly with characters who are so physically active. And so it draws attention to itself, but it's something that's drawing attention to the viewer, drawing the viewer's attention in a comedy that's not funny. It's something that kind of bumps them out of the work. And I get the realization that when you do something that is going to draw the viewer's eye in a work of comedy, whatever it is, it needs to be funny. Like, for example, in Ouran High School Host Club, there's the whole thing in the first episode with the vase, where the camera placement and objects are placed in the environment, like arrows and that sort of thing, to explicitly draw the audience's attention to that vase to set up the joke when it gets knocked over. And in turn sets the...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it just turns the rest of the plot in motion. And like the thing is, if you don't want to draw Ranma's butt or any other nude character's nude butt, that's fine. There's ways to do that. You can the scene in question, Ranma female is in the female form. Ranma is in getting to take a bath. You put steam in there. Other shows have found the perfect example of putting comedic images over where the thing that you're trying to hide is.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's always a funny way to cover up what you want covered up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's alternatives that you could have chosen, and they didn't. And that's what's frustrating, is the thing that I should not be saying when referring to anything that is adapting a work by Rumiko Takahashi is that it's artless. And that's what this particular thing is. It is an artless way of handling a content issue situation.
And it also just feels so weird to choose to adapt Ranma 1/2, which is, or was at least, sort of infamous with its casual nudity, and then choose to remove it in a very, as you said, unartful way. It's like, there's ways you could do it, you could change it, but you're still wanting to take all those same shots from the manga. And apparently you're not wanting to change them, but you're changing them.
You're doing it for, like, if you had just thought about it for 5 minutes, guys. And I'm willing to bet that actually was thought about too much, that like the committees and Netflix execs went over and over it, and they settled on this really stupid, boring thing. Instead of just letting the artists handle it.
Well, one question I do have, I don't know, is this for both the Japanese and the American release that it's been edited like this, or is this like a pure localization thing?
This is for both.
Okay.
So
really weird then, because it's not, it's an online thing. It's not like they're trying to get around,
So it did air in Japanese television. But
okay,
even then,
when did it do that? Like, what time was its time slot? Because
I do not know. And I am aware of plenty of fan service series which will have different versions for different time slots and different networks.
Yeah.
Where, in fact, this is one of the things that whenever High Dive licenses an anime fan service anime series, they will have they will try to get the both the cleaned up version for closer to prime time, and then when it becomes available, the late night wow HBO Japanese version of HBO naughty version. And oftentimes, like when you watch these shows, like, oh, you can even see how they did the censorship, where it's like, oh, they put a mist layer on the for steam layer on the picture or something like that for these scenes, and then literally just adjusted the opacity slider in the software depending on what version they needed. Like, oh, this is on the over the air broadcast, we're going to turn the opacity up 100%. We're doing this for the premium channel. We're going to turn it all the way down, all the way off. This is on a different network. We're going to put it to 50 to 25%.
It's an
like
elegant solution. I mean, yeah.
And yeah, what particularly has me wondering about this also is like of the shows of this season where I've heard breakthrough of these shows to a larger non-anime audience, we have Dan to Dan, which is based on a manga that is running on the Jump Plus and is available through the Shonen Jump app. And currently now the actual app, not the web app only. So, and they are coming up on a story, on at least an episode, if not a couple episodes, where there is going to be a bunch of male nudity happening, particularly butts. Because they're going to be fighting so we've just had the acrobatic Selkie storyline. And there's, not to spoil too much for the manga, but there is going to be a shrimp alien showing up where there's going to be a whole bunch of water in the environment. And it ends up with basically our, at this point, 3 leads, more or less either in their underwear or not wearing any clothes at all.
I feel like you're describing fan fiction to me right now.
So
I love that we've reached the point where this kind of stuff is it's just everywhere.
Like, I'm not watching Dan to Dan. There's a particularly nasty bit in that first episode that like apparently it's very much a one-off thing, but I couldn't get past it in terms of
that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Like the reason I got through it is because my introduction to Dan was on the Manga-splaining podcast, or listening to the Manga-splaining podcast and hearing it being that it was presented to the podcast by Deb Aoki. So like having a woman present this, like, okay, yes, there's this scene of threatened sexual violence against a woman, but with the statement that, hey, that's not what this is in the larger scope of the work, and it becomes a much better work. That it is a good work, and there's good comedy and action and that sort of thing that comes after the point where I'm like, okay, I can power through this. And apparently lots of other people have as well, because again, this is the show when I hear people saying, oh, this is the thing my non-anime fans are fan friends at work are watching, or that sort of thing. Or when I'm on Discords that are non-anime related and the topic of anime comes up, this is the one they're watching week to week of this season's shows. It helps that it's on Netflix. It helps that apparently Netflix is doing a pretty good job of promoting it, where it's like coming up in people's recommendations. But it absolutely has that issue with the first episode that people have to overcome. And apparently people are doing it, which again adds the additional wrinkle to Ranma 1/2, where like, hey, Dan to Dan's doing just fine with how it's handling its content. What's your deal?
What's your deal, guys?
Yeah. Well,
and it's just such a, it's a tone thing. Ranma has a very specific sitcom-y tone, and it's like, even though there's tons of nudity, it's usually like hilarious nudity.
It's never played sexually.
There's not a lot of titillating moments. It's just, oh gosh, what are they doing now? And part of that is the art style. I feel like we all know real boobs don't look like that, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you that. But it gives it this kind of cartoon element, and you're just kind of going with it because it fits the vibe, Butts fit perfectly with the vibe. It's just so weird that they would choose to omit butts. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're all baffled.
Yep. One other minor note, news, like light news thing. So a while back, when I did my anime music video rundown thing, I included on my playlist some videos for the sort of official anime music video kind of things. And I omitted one that I was not aware of, and I'm aware of it now because it was remastered. Recently received a remaster. The music video for KMFDM's Juke Joint Jezebel just recently got remastered, and the original music video for that, not the Giorgio Moroder remix, which has footage from the Mortal Kombat movie, but the original version, heavily uses footage from the first Pat Labor movie. Including editing it so there's a bit where Oda ends up lip syncing with the song's lyrics.
Clever.
So like, and now it's mainly like using footage primarily from the end of the movie, and a lot of it gets looped and reused. But still, I was like, oh, did not know about that, because KMFDM, long connection through various forms of anime, manga entertainment. Famously used the song "Fire" for their trailer sizzle reel. So, and also I think some of their stuff got used. One of their songs got used on the re-edited soundtrack for the Street Fighter 2 animated movie. So yeah, there's that. But it's to see this coming in from the band side as opposed to people in the anime industry sort of adopting it. So I figured I'd bring that up.
On the topic of anime music videos, I had a moment when I watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and the opening theme was Franz Ferdinand's "This Fire," and I was like, if they hadn't done this, some fan would have done it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so perfect. It's always cool to me to see like Western music influence in anime. So yeah.
Well, yeah, Edge Runners is that unique case because like it's one of those ones that hops back and forth between the Western and the fusion, Eastern influences.
But then also Kaiju number 8 had One Republic do its ending theme, and I really enjoyed that as well.
Nobody.
And it's not that I don't enjoy Japanese music, I really do. I just enjoy kind of the cross-pollinization of these things. As anime has become more mainstream over the course of my life, and now it's normal for these kind of across the Pacific collaborations to happen.
I look forward to the day when we get a Megan Thee Stallion ending credits for an anime.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it goes back so long. Like Evangelion's ending theme was a Sinatra song, but just like 24 different covers.
Actually, it's not a Sinatra song, but it's a Great American Songbook song.
No, I was just, I guess,
but
I was just familiar with his version. But
it's like Sinatra's the one who's most known for it. Written by Kay first recording was by Kay Ballard. So first sung by a woman, which actually fits nicely with how it's used in Evangelion.
Yeah.
What an interesting song choice.
Yeah.
Just one of the many, many things that you could discuss ad infinitum about that series.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a spin-off of Hideaki Anno.
We certainly will probably end up, we'll definitely end up doing some Evangelion coverage at some point in the future, if nothing else, because there was the failed attempt to do an Ultimate Fan Guide role-playing game source book for Big Eyes Small Mouth that was made back in the day, which ended up getting the reason it didn't come out is because Guardians of Order issued a release, basically a press release, saying that it was coming out, that they'd gotten the license before they'd actually signed the paperwork, and they only had a verbal agreement.
Whoops.
Yep.
That's a big no-no.
Yep.
Well, Yeah, you guys can't see it. I actually have the Sailor Moon role-playing game and resource
Yeah, I
book.
believe I have a copy of that as well. If I remember right, that book has in its episode synopses, it goes all the way to like the last season's Sailor Stars and all of that. The
No,
ones
this
that we
one's
didn't
only
get.
for the first 2 seasons.
Okay,
Although it does actually
Which is
have
all we had
the
for years
entirety
over here.
of the second season, not missing the last, I think it was 17 episodes that took forever to get dubbed.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
Cosmos movie was fun, by the way.
with that in mind, let's get to this week's collection of movies. This month, I should say, we covered the first 3 of the Garden of Sinners films. I picked these 3 because, well, like the 2 of them are about an hour long, and one of them is about 45 minutes or so. So that generally like gets to about like 3 hours, which is a nice, reasonable length of time. Some of the later ones are going to get to like a proper feature length, so we'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it.
I was kind of looking at them all on Crunchyroll. Looks like there's one that's like 2 hours, 20 minutes long, and then the rest are just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
We're looking at the first 3, which story-wise are 5, 1, and 3.
In terms of the chronological order, yeah. But in terms of publication order, these were 1, 2, and 3. And actually, in terms of the collected volume, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here, like when they were collected and published. This is the first collected published volume of the Garden of Sinners novels, so that also fits as well. So these were originally self-published novels, basically, early published online by Kinoko Nasu, and illustrated by Takashi Takeuchi, who has become basically the 2 founders of Type Moon, and they later got incorporated on the fan disc for Tsukihime, which there a lot of people like got a much wider public exposure to them, and then a published publication at Comiket, and finally a commercial. Finally, Kodansha's like, we're just gonna publish these and put them together as actual print books in stores. That was in like 2005. So by that point, I think Fate Stay Night was out. So,
Nasu on the influencer track.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And the series, we follow, our main character is Ryogi Shiki, who is a teenage girl who, much like the protagonist of Tsukihime, actually is almost kind of a prototype of the Tsukihime protagonist, in a lot of respects, also possesses the mystic eyes of death perception. Death perception. I need to properly.
You were right the first time.
And her romantic interest is Kokuto Mikia, her classmate, who is kind of basically ends up being like something of a more mundane private investigator type, almost the Watson to her Holmes, except if Watson did all the investigation and Holmes did all of the we need to punch something now.
It's an apt comparison because he very much takes care of her.
And serving as almost in just to kind of combine our mystery genre series here, we have them working for basically their Nero Wolf of Toko Aozaki, who is the sister of the person who made the glasses in Tsukihime, and who specializes kind of in sort of specializes in sort of like puppet magic of creating like puppets and puppet limbs and that sort of thing that people can that can be magically controlled. And that comes up in both the first and third parts of the story. or first and third films, where it, and those ones, Shiki has lost or loses. We see how it happens, a limb, and gets a prosthetic, a magical prosthetic, built by Toko.
Toko rolls up saying, "Oh, you only lost one limb, huh?" I was just like, "What?" Great.
Yeah.
And also, one other thing, all of these include a stop-motion animated short at the beginning reminding you of things that you should not be doing in a movie theater.
I'm kind of in love with that movie theater goer, the girl with the knife. Like,
that's Shiki.
That is Shiki.
Isn't she? I wish I had the guts to bring a knife to the movie theater and just silently stand next to anyone talking really loudly or using their cell phone. Rather than just thinking to myself that they're going to the special hell.
Yeah, these films, you know, it's, how do I want to phrase this? Hopefully this will change. Like, I'm never particularly a fan of telling stories out of order. Like, I have a lot of sympathy for the in media res, starting story. Like, okay, this is a slow build story, so we're going to give you a little bit of action right at the beginning to keep your interest, and then we're going to show how we got there. But this isn't that. This is just sort of hopping around on a linear story, telling bits and pieces, and thus far, like, we're only 3 parts in, but thus far, it's not really working for me. And, like, they try and have all of these Toko specifically, usually has a speech on, whatever issue they're dealing with, at least in the first and third films she did, because she wasn't in the first one, or the second one, which is chronologically the first, because they hadn't met yet. But she has these speeches that are trying to sound deep, but they're just surface level examinations of very obvious things, and huge leaps of logic and metaphysics are taken that nothing in the story is really backing up.
Okay, but all of Fate is like that. Like, it's very...
Yeah, all of Fate is like that. But Nasu clearly has gotten better at it. This feels like a freshman effort of...
Wait, to be fair, it was.
No, it absolutely was. But the problem is, this is a freshman effort, but it's been given a senior polish by Ufotable, who have a ton of experience in adapting this man's work. So they've figured out how to make it, but the writing is not up to the presentation that it's been given.
Minor little correction. This is the first of the Type Moon things that they've done. That
Really?
did. Yes.
Wow.
They started with this. As they did this, then they went...
see it, actually. The backgrounds are incredible, but the characters, they do make progression in character design and animation in later works, because it's not quite up to the standard of the background visuals and the music.
Oh man, Fate Zero was so good.
Yeah, like this. The first one of these came out in 2007.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's Well, they know how to polish real well. Then.
Let me start at the beginning here. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's 2 different ways you can approach this work if you're watching it for the first time. I'm watching it for the first time as someone who's seen a lot of Nasu's work, and so I'm familiar with concepts like the mystic eyes and his way of throwing a lot of different philosophies at you, and just the overall vibes. Like, the whole thing really runs on vibes. But even so, after the first one, I was just, like, so confused. And I think if you were going into this without any connection to any of Nasu's other works, it could go one of 2 ways. You could either be like, I have no idea what I just watched, or you could be like, I have no idea what I just watched, but it is vibing with me and I like it. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm coming from a totally different place. I know what I watched, and it's just not working for me.
But I will say that after watching 3, I'm a lot more invested, because then it becomes this thing that often happens with me in fandom, where you are picking out bits of lore while you're watching and you're assembling the story in your head like a puzzle. And, oh, that's why they did this, or, oh, that's why she's acting that way, etc., etc. And I personally enjoy that as a fan. I think people who prefer straightforward narratives are gonna have a real hard time. But there's a lot of, like, when you watch the first one, the first scene that you get between Shiki and Kokuto, you come off with the impression that their relationship is not great. Like, it's kind of toxic. Like, there's something weird going on there. And then you kind of get more and more throughout the course of these first 3 films. You see how they meet in the second one. And you come to understand a little better, you know, why their relationship is the way it is. I'm still not prepared to say it's a healthy relationship, but it's not as bad as it first appeared. Like, you get more context as you go through.
To put this in a bit of context, by the way, in terms of where they are in their career, I brought up their Wikipedia page because, unfortunately, as much as I love ANN and found them a very useful resource for doing this podcast, they do not let you sort company credits by date. They also let you sort dub voice actor credits by date, but that makes more sense. But company credits, but you can only sort Japanese voice actor credits by date. So Wikipedia, however, does have their works in order, and so these are the first movies they ever did. And then in terms of projects in general, before this, they had strictly done comedy. They had done Coyote Ragtime Show, Ninja Nonsense, and Dokoida.
Yeah, when we saw their production team logo come up, I was like, oh, it's so cutesy. And, like, why did they change it? It makes sense if they were doing comedies first. They'd have a cutesy little flying saucer logo that they then got rid of.
Yeah. So it's sort of like the comparison I would make to a certain degree is from the studio side of things. Looking at the career, for example, of of all the names to space, the director of Ghost in the Shell, Mamoru Oshii. If you look at his career, the big chunk of the start of his career is heavily in doing comedy. Like his first big directing credit was Urusei Yatsura. And then, like, he eventually got really good at and then when he starts doing the more serious stuff in his career, it's kind of clunky in a lot of respects. In fact, probably his most famous, like, really early serious thing he did, Angel's Egg, is like a whole bunch of vibes and atmosphere, and symbolism, but not a lot that strings it and links it all together necessarily. And that, and for Garden of Sinners, I do definitely get a sense of where they're trying to do a moody, tonally significant, tonally weighty work that reflects the themes and the subject matter of Garden of Sinners. And actually, I should mention this. I should have mentioned this earlier. In fact, I should have mentioned this last episode. Content warning for these films: imagery of sexual assault and suicide. And Ufotable tries to treat those subject matter with the level of respect and that the subject matter deserves, to their credit. But there's definitely a sense during the earlier works, particularly the first film, Overlooking View, where it doesn't quite hit the way I think they hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that they almost treat it with a casualness that's just...
Well, I think that one of the themes that they're working with here is that there is a lot of darkness in the world, and Shiki kind of belongs to that view of things, whereas Kokuto is kind of her foil, and he like thinks the best of everyone. I'm really glad that they included a shot, though, of him in the third film. There is a character who is a rapist piece of crap, and I'm really glad they included a shot of him being really angry and upset about that, even though he chooses to help this person. And,
or at least in the sense of help him not get murdered.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm not going to help someone kill you, but I do think you're a piece of crap. Whereas Shiki and Toko are just like, no, we're cool if she kills him. We're cool with that. And I was kind of on their side of it, honestly, but...
It's also actually looking this in the context of another series that we previously covered, Boogie Pop.
Yes.
Because Boogie Pop and this are like the original novels are contemporaries. The first Boogie,
I was gonna say, yeah, that the vibe-wise, they
like the first Boogie Pop novel was published in February of 1998, and the first Garden of Sinners novel was in October, or the first 5 chapters that were published by Nasu were published in October of 1998. So, like, they are, even if Nasu hadn't read Boogie Pop when the time he started writing Garden of Sinners, they are really operating in like similar vibes and a similar mindset. And this shows both in terms of like, hey, how this sort of dark undercurrent in terms of what we think of as a, rather than the light, your light and fluffy teen years as they're often depicted in anime and that sort of thing. And the high school years, the best time of your life and that sort of thing.
Such a weird viewpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's just because it's like the last carefree time of your life, but I don't know.
But only for some people. Like,
yeah, only for some.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, with that mindset, and then saying, no, there's this undercurrent beneath the surface with these characters, but also in the sense of, like, for example, with the third film, drug use comes up and is talked about very casually and not necessarily either in a aggressively negative light either.
More like it happens kind of way.
Yeah, like when we have Kokuto trying to find the guy that, to give a brief summary of the premise of the third film, we have a group of people get spectacularly murdered in a abandoned bar, basically, and Shiki and Kokuto are hired or are tasked by Toko to find the person who is responsible for killing them. Partially because if they want to get paid, they need to do that because their boss spent all her money on a Victorian Ouija board.
That scene about them talking about paychecks came up right after I was questioning, like, do they actually work for Toko? Is this actually a business? Where are they getting their money? They should be getting their money from Toko, but apparently not always.
Well, that's sort of that. I mean, that is one of the things that has me very interested, because like this does take place in the greater Nasu-Verse, where Fate and Tsukihime are happening. Toko,
but it's like alternate dimensions, right?
It's not.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
It is one universe. And the thing is, Toko Aozaki is an Aozaki. She is old mage family. Why doesn't she have money?
So
because she's
I want to say partially, like, yes, she doesn't know the value of money and spends it a lot. From what I understand, it comes up on in which on the Holy Night.
Yeah, I did some online research. I looked into the characters. She basically left her family after she was passed over as the next head of the household for her younger sister.
No, but listen, this is important. Because, like, you don't learn for sure that they are a detective agency until the third movie. You don't learn for sure that magic exists, really, until the third movie. You don't hear Shiki's mystic eyes mentioned, I think, until the second, maybe the third one.
Well, we see them in the first one.
You do
but
see
we
them,
just
but
see
they
them.
are never mentioned what they are. It's not mentioned that magic exists. It is obvious that the supernatural exists because they're dealing with ghosts in the first one. But even so, you're so confused.
But that's the thing. It's not actually ghosts in the first one. It's astral projection.
Isn't there like at least one? Well, she drives all those girls to commit suicide, so then their spirits are there, right?
But we don't know if those are actually their spirits or if those are just like a manifestation that this girl is also projecting.
See, I'm still confused.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that like I have serious issues with this, but it's still interesting. Like, I'm gonna keep watching. I'm gonna watch them all.
So like the part of me that waited for a new Dragon Age game for 10 years, coming up with fan theories and stuff, is really interested to watch a series like this where I learn new bits of the lore with every installment, and then I could start putting the picture together in my head.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
But it does require some commitment. It requires some buy-in. You know what I mean?
we did have to shotgun these over the last couple of days because the TV was being used for Dragon Age.
It's
fair.
It's been 10 years. Okay, sorry.
Okay, don't forget, leading up to the release, you replayed the entire series.
Of course I did.
And reread all the books and all the We're big Dragon Age fans
I don't
here.
claim to be healthy.
That's
irrelevant.
We work out. We eat as good we can. We raise our child, but we
I bring this up only to mention that the part of my brain that likes putting puzzles together was appreciative of the approach that the series takes, even though you found it immensely frustrating. And even I was kind of frustrated by it. Like, it really took two and a half of these for me to really buy in. Because then they started giving me answers to these questions I'd been asking.
I mean, well, that I can appreciate what it's doing without liking it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, like, one of the things I liked about these movies is, as well as how they handled the stuff they do with the concept of the mystic eyes of death perception, in particularly ways that like Tsukihime doesn't. Like, the climax of the third film with the big confrontation between Shiki and our sympathetic antagonist of Fujino, who's the one who's using her psychic powers to kill the rapists and a few other people.
Lot of back and forth on how they reacted to her.
Yeah. It is when they get the reveal at the end of it that, oh no, what's happening is she's got appendicitis, and part of what's happening is it's killing her, and that's amping up her psychic powers and that sort of thing. And like once Shiki learns, it's like, oh, well then I'll just kill the appendicitis. I will kill the concept of appendicitis in this person.
David was yelling that she should do that at the TV, and then she literally said that she did it, and he was just like, yes!
It's like the mystic guy, she can literally kill concepts with it.
I was like, that's insane.
I mean, she also mentioned, she could kill a god, and I'm like, I know an elementary school student and a couple of college freshmen who could really use your abilities right now. Referencing back to our previous show, Dark Gathering.
Right? Reminds me of that line in Kill Bill. If you encounter God, God will be cut. If you can kill the abstract concepts of things, that's pretty wild.
But another thing that this Shiki has over the Shiki from Tsukihime, which is why this Shiki made it in Fate Grand Order and not the other one. Yeah.
I mean, nothing, like they did put Arcweed into Grand Order recently. Well, recently for the U.S. version, 2 years ago for the Japanese.
Yeah. Arcweed has the also advantage. She's also very powerful and very clever and creative in how she uses her power, and 2, incredibly cute. So.
Shiki seems pretty straightforward. I sees it.
Yeah.
I slashes it.
And
Does
the other
Shiki need to cut a bitch?
Yes. Constantly.
What are you doing? I'm going home. Why are you going home? Because I can't cut this problem.
Toko describes her as murder-philic in the subtitles that we got. And
I don't...
I do believe that there were some translation,
I don't think murder-philic is the right word.
I kind of like that.
Honestly, the fact that she's... I mean, because, philic is not philiac. Philic literally means it is drawn to, or it draws that to it. So Shiki is literally as death drawn to her, which makes a lot of sense. But also, she is also drawn to it, so philiac would also work.
Yeah, it goes either way. And then I think Toko is also the one who explicitly says that Kokuto is, like, the one who chooses to see the good in people no matter what, which is why he sticks to her side. I'm not sure I agree with that reading of their relationship. Like, it's obvious to me why she is drawn to him. It's not quite so obvious to me why he is drawn to her, even with all the context of the second movie, which covers, their first meeting and how they first kind of started hanging out together. And
well, I did do some research, so I do know why he is drawn to her.
Beyond the stalking.
That is the cause of the stalking?
Because there's that this is a trope actually that comes up a lot in anime, I've found, is that there is a character who really wants a connection with another human being, but all of their words and actions push that other person away. And so I usually come down on, like, if I was viewing this situation in real life, for the sake of the person who keeps getting pushed away, I would tell them just to cut ties, like, to safeguard their own mental health.
This is not a healthy relationship.
The person who's constantly pushing them away needs to put in a lot of work before they're capable of the type of connection they want. But it's just like that standoffish loner trope that for some reason is inexplicably attractive to the main character. It's like, I don't know how I feel about it.
I mean, well, the thing is, the bad boy trope is...
Well, that's kind of different.
It's not really, though. It's the person you're attracted to who is not like, they're different aspects of the same sort of character archetype.
I don't think you can compare, like, Shiki and, I don't know, let's say Kuwabara from...
Okay, the thing is, Kuwabara isn't a bad boy. He's not the bad boy trope. He's definitely the delinquent.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad boy. Kuwabara is a fluffy puppy.
He is.
He is.
Him.
Like,
I love him.
He
a fluffy golden retriever puppy.
Yes.
That.
Like, Kuwabara is very much the delinquent, is the school delinquent type. But his character itself is not the bad boy. That's definitely more... Like, even Yusuke is the quote-unquote jerk with the heart of... We have gone into...
Well, it does kind of fit the trope, too, Yusuke.
Yes, Yusuke is also one of those ones who's pushing someone away while desperately wanting connection. But at the same time, he's capable of reciprocal affection that seems to be somewhat out of Shiki's range for the moment. I cannot speak to the future.
And for Shiki in this, also what goes with it is getting back to... When I bring... Part of the reason I brought up Boogie Pop earlier is Shiki, like with our main protagonist of Boogie Pop, has kind of a dual personality, masculine-feminine thing going on as well. The difference being is that with Boogie Pop... Did.
Like, does she lose that?
Yes.
It was unclear.
Yes.
Truck-kun sent it to Isekai'd it. Isekai her other personality.
Okay.
We didn't see the vehicle. It could have been Truck-kun. We knew that personality was in charge. And when Truck-kun hits something, it kills it and isekais it away. So, you know.
Yeah, and we did not see the vehicle, but we heard the engine, tires, and horn, and that was a very heavy vehicle there.
All I'm saying is you can't prove it didn't happen that way. I don't think we've ever had a dissociative identity disorder person who's been struck by the car. We don't know. Would it just knock out what?
We don't know.
These are the questions prove it didn't
that will keep me up at night.
Although at this point in history, it's possible that instead the alternate personality became a spirit detective, or either got Yusuke or Minky Momo, basically.
It was also unclear to me which Shiki was like the murder happy one.
The masculine one is the one that is generally like we're talking like, hey, I'm the murder one, or that Shiki had pushed the masculine impulses, including the desire to do harm and murder, which apparently we are just now.
Honestly, it's a whole yin-yang thing.
I'm glad they kind of backed off the gender binary later in the third one, because when she finally gets to go all out, she's enjoying it.
Yeah.
And like the antagonist is like, no, you're enjoying this. I don't enjoy this. And she's like, yeah, you do.
Honestly, it almost seems as if the impact, instead of removing it, just sort of forced the two together. Yeah. They're no longer separate because, yeah, there's times that she's acting, you know, that very traditional Japanese feminine aesthetic, and there are times where she puts on her leather jacket and goes a-killin'.
Is the leather jacket a signifier of her masculine personality, or is it just cool?
I think it's just cool.
It's just cool.
Yeah. I think it starts out as symbol of masculine personality and then becomes just cool.
It's just cool.
Honestly, it would not be surprised if that was added just for basically artistic looking cool thing.
For vibes.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are cool about Garden of Sinners, let's talk about that score by Yuki Kadra.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh.
I love the use of ominous chanting. I'm a sucker for ominous chanting.
I mean, that is not going to say that's her thing, but she was doing that all the way back in like .hack.
Love it.
I will say that like cinematography, you really only notice the music if it's really, really good and really, really bad. And the music for Garden of Sinners is amazing. Like, it is atmosphere. It sets the tone so well, and it goes so well with the visual, like the backgrounds, to really establish the vibes of the world we are in. Because, yeah, as was mentioned, this is a show that runs on vibes.
It almost goes into a film noir space sometimes.
Very much so.
And then the ominous chanting comes in and makes it more supernatural mystery again, which I appreciate. I enjoy both genres.
In fact, actually, let me make sure I got the quote correct. There's a Dashiell Hammett quote that I think actually applies really well here. There it is. Thank you, Google autofill. This actually works. So, yeah, it's a Raymond Chandler quote, sorry. And honestly, I think it applies really, really well to Kokuto. To a certain degree, Shiki, but especially to Kokuto. Down these mean streets a man must go who is not himself mean, and is neither tarnished nor afraid. He is the hero, he is everything. He must be a complete man and a common man, yet an unusual man. He must be, to use a rather weathered phrase, a man of honor. By instinct, by inevitability, without thought of it, and certainly without saying it, he must be the best man in his world and a good enough man for any world. He will take no man's money dishonestly, and no man's insolence without a due and dispassionate revenge. He is a lonely man, and his pride is that you will treat him as a proud man or be very sorry you ever saw him. So like that's like for these quotes, like the first part absolutely is Kokuto. With that second one, that is also absolutely Shiki. It's like they took the Raymond Chandler quote and put it into two different characters and two different people.
I quite like that. Yeah, and then David and I discussed Kokuto a little bit, and at first I thought him very naive. Very like letting himself be taken advantage of a little bit. But once you figure out that he has seen the full gamut of horrors and he chooses every day and every time to try and make the world a little bit better, and not in a cheesy way, but just in the small ways that he is able to do, then he really does become quite a heroic character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much, this is someone who chooses to believe in the best in everyone, even when they have shown that they are very much not worthy of it. It's very much, you have shown, if I stop believing in you, that says more about me than it does about you. Because I will believe in anyone.
And like even for the character who is revealed to be a rapist, like he's not letting him off the hook.
No.
Has him go to the police and turn himself in.
Yeah.
It's like, do this or die, because I won't stand between you and Shiki.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to let this girl kill you. I'll let that girl kill you, but I won't let this one.
I can't stop that one.
To finish with that quote, because the last paragraph of this quote absolutely fits for who these characters are and how they exist in this world, and to a degree, a lot of Nasu's works as well. The last paragraph is, the story is this man's adventure in search of a hidden truth, and it would be no adventure if it did not happen to a man fit for adventure. If there were enough like him, the world would be a very safe place to live in without becoming too dull to be worth living in. And I do get that sense from the stories, like with people like both Shiki and with Kokuto, or for that matter, like in Fate's Stay Night, with Emiya and Rin and Saber and that sort of thing. That they are that is the mindset, but like these people are people who have a sense of dignity, decency, and respect for humanity that they try to present the best they can, and
they're not showy about it. It's just who they
yeah.
are. Yeah, which is nice. I also like the continuing theme in all of Nasu's works that there's kind of like a normal world and then there's a shadow world where all the supernatural stuff is going on. And there's usually a character who is like really enmeshed in the shadow world, but there's always a character with ties to the real world who has that kind of heroic quality, who can kind of pull them back out of it every once in a while. It says you can't just live in the shadow world. You have to have ties to the normal world as well, or you're gonna forget what you're fighting for.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's also definitely true as well. Is having someone who is like, in fact, generally is often the audience perspective character who fits that gap. Again, Emiya in Fate's Stay Night, Kokuto here in Garden of Sinners.
Yep.
Where, and with Kokuto serving as the person who does the investigative work and thus able to walk in and out of both sort of the supernatural magical shadow world and also the more mundane but still kind of shadowy world of like, hey, he could have a conversation with someone who's a drug dealer and be like, yeah, I know what you do to make your living, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with having this conversation. You're a person, so am I.
Frankly, that moment might be when I started respecting him and started seeing him as more than just like a naive dude bumbling around after his love interest. I was like, oh, you know people like this? Like
so casual. It's like, oh, hey, man. It's like, hey
bro, like
I don't partake, but, I'm friendly with everyone.
The kind of guy who just stops and talks to houseless people on the street and learns their life stories. Like,
all right. Yeah.
Yeah, so like this, I absolutely enjoyed rewatching these. I had watched these before as part of sort of a Nasu-Verse watch through project. I'm glad I got glad I for Nasu-Vember we got a chance to come through and watch these. Um, so unfortunately, the novels did not get a U.S. release. They did get licensed briefly by Del Rey's manga imprint, but they shut it down before it actually was able to see print, which is a bummer. I really hope that somebody like J Novel Club or um, Seven Seas or somebody like that license rescues those. Um, I certainly think like watching these and thinking about how these might have been written, and also at the time of recording, there's a lot more conversation happening right now about sort of spotlighting and bringing to the forefront the legacy of Judith Del Rey, the founder of the Del Rey Books imprint, and her work in discovering various science fiction authors and that sort of thing. And I can't help but think that if she had got, and if someone had put a copy of, like, I don't know how fluent she was in Japanese, but there's like a translated copy of these novels in front of her, she'd be like, huh, okay. I think there's something here. I think these could sell, and I think this is worth publishing and printing. I do miss that like brief chunk of time in like the 2010s or something like that, where we had a bunch of like mainstream science fiction labels like Tor, who were trying their hands at publishing Japanese, not just like Japanese like science fiction, capital S, capital F authors, but like, hey, Tor published Wicked City, the novel of Wicked City, and Tor and the first two books. And I wished we had I think I forget who it was, but it was one of the major like publishers who published the Haruhi Suzumiya novels. And I do kind of wish we were still kind of in that time.
It's also really important now to push for physical media more than ever before and archiving. It's going to be a big issue, I think, of the next century. Always push for physical media where you can.
Yep.
Back up everything.
Absolutely. Well, any final thoughts on the first three films in the Garden of Sinners series?
I'm probably going to continue on and watch the rest because I feel like I'm a little invested now, and I want to see what's going on. And I think it's really fun also to watch this after we watched Tsukihime a while back, and then we just watched Dark Gathering. Completely different vibes, but kind of
very similar settings, very different vibes.
Related in the sense of like the horrors that are encountered. I like kind of plumbing the spectrum inherent in any genre, horror, supernatural fiction, mystery. So I feel like I'm becoming a more well-rounded consumer of anime.
And so hopefully so are our listeners.
Hopefully.
Indeed. Quick bit of channel for those of you who are listening to this or listening on YouTube. So upcoming Wednesday after this goes up for public listeners, I will have my Kimura Con report. Long story short, I had a good time. And I'll get a bit more detail of panels I went to and all that fun stuff on that. And for next month's viewing, since we tend to do kind of movies, like just individual movies for December, I just figured we would do another kids film. And we're going to do Animal Treasure Island. This is a film that received a physical release from Discotek Media. It's also available in the dub form on archive.org. And has, among its animation staff, one Hayao Miyazaki. So we kind of get to see Miyazaki before he got big.
Before grumpy old man face.
I mean, from what I gather, he always was grumpy old man face.
This is
He
before
was born a grumpy old
I
man.
think this is more disappointed in my son phase.
Oh,
He has
That's
the
fair.
worst things to say about his son's movies.
my favorite movie of all time, for the record, is Muppet Treasure Island. So I'm always interested in Treasure Island adaptations, and I'm very excited to watch it.
Yeah, so this one's going to be a silly animal version. And again, Japanese anime. And it is in print currently still. And so it probably is going to end up on sale for might end up on sale for the Crunchyroll store holiday sale, maybe. So I will have links to the relevant places where you can get those in the show notes. So, in the meantime, if you enjoyed what you heard, please consider backing our Patreon at patreon.com/count0rr. Patreon backers will get access to shows like this one, and my vlogs and video essays and blog posts and let's plays and all of that up to 1 week in advance. Along with all sorts of other fun stuff. So, and go ahead and do that. And if going that route is not in terms of the monthly Patreon thing, is not your cup of tea, perhaps a coffee instead, in terms of tossing some money in the Ko-fi tip jar. Anything contributing helps cover hosting costs. For Animal Treasure Island, I'll also have the links in the doobly-doo will be affiliate links if you just want to help that way. Quick clarification note, by the way, also for those who are going through the doobly-doo, since I can't link directly to the work on the Crunchyroll store, this is Animal Treasure Island, not the 1978 anime series Treasure Island. Two totally different things.
Beware.
Don't start watching one and then realize you're watching the wrong one.
I mean, to be fair, the 1978 animated series is also animated by Osamu Dezaki, so like there's good stuff to be had there, but it's going to be longer. So there's that. All right. So with that, you all have a wonderful day.
Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. If not, happy fall, assuming you're in our hemisphere.
And if you aren't, happy spring.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right.